Good morning, and welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We're delighted to have you here, both those in this space and those attending virtually. It's good to be together. We are a community of youth, adults, and children sharing the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Jim Van Ostrand. I use pronouns he, him, his, and I'm a member of our board of directors. We invite you to join our intentional social hour. You can participate virtually or in person. The 20-minute small group experience is designed to help you go deeper into the service topic and have a deep experience of community. We'll begin at 12 o'clock. Service participants today, in addition to myself, include Reverend Jack, Reverend Roger, Worship Associate Bob Shaw, Amy Peterson-Derrick, with behind-the-scenes support from Aaron Scott. Our musicians today are Jody McCormick and the OK Factor. Remind you that we have our traditional Circle of Lament service this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. See our e-news for more information. We have received pledges from 358 households for $763,000. This is 82% of our budget goal for the coming year. Thank you to all who have sent in your pledge. We're encouraged by the response, including 42% of folks who have increased their pledge for next year. We still have a ways to go to reach our goals, so we continue to encourage families who haven't made their pledge to do so. All pledges, from zero to tens of thousands of dollars, help us know where we are and prepare a realistic budget for the 2022 to 23 program year. As many of you know, I serve as treasurer on the board, and I'd like to provide some perspective around the budget so you know where your pledge goes. First, only about 18% of our budget goes towards just facilities and basic operations, keeping the building running, paying for utilities, cleaning a lot of snow, taking care of the trees, all that kind of stuff. About 7% goes towards UUA dues and the cost of program offerings like Wellspring, OWL, and so forth. The majority of the church's budget, about 75%, supports salaries and benefits for the church staff. They are the ones making the programs happen, building content, figuring out the technology, and really addressing the day-to-day issues that come with operating this facility. That's where your pledge goes. It's easy to get lost in the numbers and the mundane operational happenings of the church. I find it helpful to step back and remember what it's all about. It's about funding the mission of White Bear UU Church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love. Financial gifts and volunteering help this mission come to life. This church is so good at growing souls, mine included, and is helping to heal the world in love. This is why I'm giving money and my time as treasurer to the church, and I'm hoping you'll join me. Our pledge table continues to be in the lobby. You'll find a link to the pledge in the chat. I implore you to make your pledge if you haven't done so.
Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together we make it a holy place. Bob Shaw will lead us in our chalice lighting.
One day I was driving along with my 6-year-old daughter in the car. To her, everything was new and interesting. She was bursting with curiosity, and she asked me about the traffic, the billboards, even the music on the radio. She watched me singing along to an oldies station, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you know this song." I said, "Yes, honey, I've heard it before." 2 songs later, the same thing happened. She looked at me singing the lyrics to the song that she'd never heard, and she said, "Oh, you know this song too?" And I said, "Yes, honey. In fact, I know every song I listen to. I almost never hear new music. Pretty much everything I do, I've done before. Putting on my clothes, driving to work, my job, making dinner, cleaning up the house. I've done these things before many times. I slip into routines which are familiar and stress-free. The same thing is true with what I believe. I tend to settle into a certain attitude about things. Since the murder of George Floyd, I've come to see that some of my beliefs must change. I have attitudes that I don't see as explicitly racist, but they do have the effect of separating people by race and class. My beliefs about property values, schools, crime are like the same songs that I repeat over and over again. Maybe I should take a lesson from my daughter and get a new playlist for my songs and for my beliefs. So I light the chalice today for waking up and having the ability to see things in a new way.
I invite you to join together in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. And our opening hymn today is Return Again. It is number 1011 in the smaller teal-colored hymnal. I invite you in this room to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing, and you at home as well. Return Again, we'll do it twice through.
Return Good morning. This morning's story is called Whose Reality Is It Anyway? And it's by Orlando Brugnola. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was an average, perfectly ordinary town. In fact, everything about this town was ordinary, except for one thing. There was a storyteller in this town. The storyteller had arrived one day without any advance notice. There had been no invitation, there had been no request. The storyteller just showed up, took in a great big deep breath, and went about constructing a big giant sign inviting all people, anyone, everyone, to come and listen to stories. And the storytelling began. There would be forests with huge and sometimes strange trees and mossy rocks and rivers with golden fish swimming. There would be talking tigers and a sly fox and wise turtles and a tall blue mountain peak with snow at the very top and a wonderful magical city on its slopes. All of the children listening to the stories would want it to listen forever because the stories made them feel amazed and happy, and they wanted to share their amazement and happiness with the rest of their families and anyone else who would listen. So they asked the storyteller if they could take parts of the stories home with them to share, and the answer was always, yes, of course. And so they did. "Look at what the storyteller gave me," the children would exclaim. But the elders would simply reply, "You can't have that in this house. Tigers are much too loud. The turtles are too big. And those rocks are definitely too mossy. And the snow will melt all over the house. Take it back. Get that out of here." And so the children went back to the storyteller with their heads hung low. "Our families won't let us bring anything home from the stories," they said. "Please help us." And so the storyteller thought and thought and thought about how to help the children of this very ordinary town. The next day, something strange began happening in the town that got everybody talking. Things started showing up in unexpected places. A big tree right in the middle of the street, a kind tiger at the post office, a wise turtle at the breakfast table, and a huge blue mountain at the front door of a house. Nobody knew what was going on, but they were pretty sure they knew who was responsible. And so the townspeople went to the mayor to plead their case. "You have to do something about this storyteller," they said. "That storyteller has turned our town and our lives upside down." And so the mayor marched right over to the storyteller's house and knocked on the door. "Yes," came a kind voice from inside. "This has got to stop," said the mayor angrily. "What has to stop?" asked the voice from inside. "All these things, all these inconvenient things that are showing up everywhere," said the mayor. "You don't like them?" asked the voice, sounding a little surprised. "Are you kidding?" shouted the mayor. "Today I couldn't even get into my house because there was a mountain in front of the door. A mountain." "Well, why didn't you just go through it?" asked the voice. "Go through it? It's a mountain. It's made of rock. What do you mean, go through it?" "But it's just a story mountain," said the voice. "All you have to do is enter the story. It's so simple. Just enter the story." Well, the mayor was flustered and did not know what to do or say at this, so the mayor just left to ponder this problem and to seek out the help of the wisest teacher in town. "I don't know what to do," said the mayor. "Everything in town has changed, everything is out of order, and everyone is upset." Said the teacher. "Tell me more." And so the mayor talked all about the tigers and the mountain and the turtle at the breakfast table and about what the storyteller had said. The teacher pondered this for a moment and then asked a question. "So why did you decide to not enter the story as the storyteller suggested?" Well, the mayor was not expecting this question. "I don't know. Or at least I don't think I know," said the mayor. It just didn't make sense at the time, and really, I guess I didn't know how. And then I just got angry, and I didn't want to. I don't like it when people tell me what to do. So the teacher asked, "What would you do now if you could do it over?" "I'm not sure," the mayor said. "I'm kind of afraid, though I don't quite know what I'm afraid of." "Okay," said the teachers. "New things can be unsettling, and most of us are a little reluctant to jump in or to listen, but it can be really useful to look at things in new ways." "But," said the mayor, "it's not easy. After all, how do we know that we will like how the story ends?" And the teacher said, with all the gentleness in the world, "Well, we don't know. All we can do is decide whether we will enter into the story and be amazed and delighted by it, or if we will be closed to it." The mayor thought about it some more and decided the teacher maybe was right, and that he ought to go back to the storyteller and find out how to enter the story after all. I'm going to invite you now to rise in body or spirit. We're going to sing Go Lift It Up, number 1057, as we sing our children, youth, and facilitators on their way. After our children and youth go to their RE circles today, I'm inviting parents to come back to the alcove to reconnect with their families. Go lift it up.
I invite you into a time of centering. Feel your body. Feel the connection to the ground wherever you are. Connect in this time of meditation to your story, and know that part of the magic of community is that we get to share our unfolding stories with one another. As we gather today in our beautiful sanctuary and virtually from many places within and beyond the Twin Cities metro area, about 75 in this room before the children left, and 50 households joining online. Let's take a moment, each of us, to get grounded in our own story on this particular day, April 10th, 2022. We continue to hold in our hearts all those who are struggling near and afar, including people in Ukraine and elsewhere who are struggling with war, oppression, and hatred. Within our own community, this morning we hold in our hearts Phil Williams, who had 5 arteries replaced in heart bypass surgery on Monday. The surgery went well, and Phil's recovery is off to a good start. Much love to Phil and his wife, Kate Christopher, and their whole family for the recovery road ahead. We also hold in our hearts this morning Jan Crowley, who will have open heart surgery on Friday. May her surgery also go well and her recovery well. We hold Barbara Qualley as she navigates multiple health challenges. This morning we celebrate with Nancy and Jack Versteeg the birth of their new grandson, Charles Charlie Versteeg. Charlie, brother Alexander, and parents Andy and Hannah are all doing well. And we celebrate with Mimi Kramer the arrival this past week of great-grandson Elvis Rowan Schmidt. Into the space wherever we are, let us now say the names aloud of those other folks who are holding in our hearts today. Susan, Paul. May each of us find solace and support in this community when we are grieving, when we are struggling with mental or physical illness, or addiction, or any other challenges in life. And may we find in this place a place where we can share the great joys in our life as well. May it be so. Amen. Today, our social action special collection is for Habitat for Humanity. For many years, we have partnered with Habitat with donations and with volunteers. Our goal is to help build houses for our neighbors and those who deserve a safe and affordable house like we all do. The Twin Cities are in an affordable housing crisis, which hits people of color disproportionately. Your donation not only helps create a home for families, it also impacts the entire family's health and education. So as usual, you can donate in 3 ways on our White Bear UU Church webpage. Send a check or leave a check in the locked box outside the front office, or use the text to give option that you'll see on the screen. No matter how you give, please indicate the keyword Habitat. And thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life that we lead together, serving the world. We have two readings this morning. The first is a poem by Mary Oliver called Just as the Calendar Began to Say Summer. I went out of the schoolhouse fast and through the gardens and the woods and spent all summer forgetting what I'd been taught. 2 times 2 and diligence and so forth, how to be modest and useful and how to succeed and so forth, machines and oil and plastic and money and so forth. By fall, I had healed somewhat, but was summoned back to the chalky rooms and to the desks to sit and remember the way the river kept rolling the pebbles, the way the wild wrens sang, though they didn't have a penny in the bank, the way the flowers were dressed in nothing but light. And the second reading is one packed sentence from Alvin Toffler. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Can learning be joyful? Of course it can. Ask any child enamored with the words she hears all around her, whose meanings are a complete mystery to her. Or ask a teenager that just got his learning permit for driving, the idea of increased independence and mobility bursting at his seams. There are so many times that learning is exciting, refreshing, invigorating, a reason to get up in the morning. But is learning always joyful? Nope. I recently taught a class and asked the question, when was the last time you were joyful about learning something new? I was surprised by the answers I received. It turns out adults sometimes lose the joy of learning. Context matters, of course. This was the fall of 2020. We were all in various states of shock. Still in a pandemic, we were also living in a post-George Floyd Minnesota. We were part of what was often called a racial reckoning or racial awakening. Many people who held privileged identities were finally waking up to the life experiences of so many people who were different from them. For this brief moment in time, while the world seemed like it was spinning more slowly than usual, we, and I mean a big collective we were finally ready to enter into the stories of other people, people with different identities and beliefs and life experiences. Just like in Amy's story, when the storyteller had plopped a story right on our doorstep, and it wasn't a made-up story, it was a real story with real consequences for real people. Our whole metro area was affected by this one story, and it was complex. Awakenings aren't always gentle. Sometimes the light of truth can be blinding. There are numerous impediments to our potential progress, and there are many reasons to just keep on sleeping. Sometimes we are closed to learning new things. Sometimes we are actually really proud of what we've already learned. And sometimes we are dead set against learning from our mistakes. Does it sound like any of us? But in these moments, we need to be able to find new playlists, like Bob said in our chalice lighting. I want to be open to learning new strategies, eyes wide open to the myriad possibilities. We need to have that humility to unlearn some of the harmful patterns and behaviors that are keeping us stuck in our rut. And I need to have the wisdom to relearn new and better pathways. Here in this church, we are part of a learning community. We make mistakes, and we learn from them, beginning again in love. As we sang earlier, return again, return again. Return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. The process of being born and reborn sounds a lot to me like learning and relearning. I once heard an interview with an elderly gentleman on the occasion of his 70th wedding anniversary. He was asked, "What is the secret? How have you stayed married to the same person for 70 years? He looked at the interviewer, confused, and said, "I haven't been married to the same person for 70 years. That would never have worked." We wake up different people every day. We're living, we're growing, constantly becoming new versions of ourselves. That's the only way that it's possible to be together for 70 years, to accept each other's changes and evolutions and growths. Which brings me back to our reading from Alvin Toffler. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. During these cycles of learning, we go through many stages on our way from apathy to enlightenment. We pass by the sign reading, "Ignorance is bliss." We also pass a group of people with their fingers in their ears chanting, "What you know can't hurt you, what you don't know can't hurt you." But what if it can? What if our ignorance causes bliss for us, but harm, pain, and loss for others? Right now, it'd be much easier to ignore the news, especially when there are wars and natural disasters affecting our fellow inhabitants of this planet we call home. But how can we stay awake without resigning to feelings of hopelessness? Well, for one, we can be sure to stay tuned to local news and politics, where our voice and our actions have more sway. Secondly, we need to stop pretending that knowing the news will substitute for human connection. Even if we read that news on a social media site, there's nothing inherently social about reading the news there. We are part of multiple societies and communities, and these communities need us to engage with each other to survive and function. There is complexity all around us, and sometimes it's overwhelming. What can make it less overwhelming is understanding that our world is made up of stories and storytellers. We are all living and telling our stories. There's real beauty there, but there's also danger. One danger is the potential deception that lies in a single story. Single stories tend to flatten people's complex and embodied experiences. These single stories often manifest in prototypes or stereotypes, but they don't accurately capture lived human experience. To counter that, we need to open our eyes to the complexity all around us. Another powerful danger, as we know, lies in propaganda, fake news, and misinformation. We are living through a sea change right now, and many people have theories about why it's happening. Because of the precarious nature of this moment, people are especially vulnerable to accept answers to their most challenging questions without thinking through all the ramifications. In his book, Future Shock, Alvin Toffler talks about what happens to us when too many big changes happen in too little time. Does that sound familiar to anyone? He calls this experience future shock, and it feels apropos right now. When the future that is coming towards us all of a sudden feels like it's hurtling towards us, hastily and heavily, we have the potential of going into a state of shocked paralysis. Together, I think we have just experienced this, a massive sea change of how we do life, how we pay for things, how we gather, how we acquire health care. I don't know who could have predicted where we'd be as a church community 3 years ago. I know I didn't. I was actually really clear about church being a space away from the digital world. I actually wrote a bit about this, the importance of cultivating in-person relationships in a world that was getting progressively more and more digital and virtual. Oh, the irony. I mean, I will still argue for the importance of setting aside time, preferably more than just 1 hour a week, to be deeply present. Present to your own needs, the needs of your community, the needs of our global neighbors. Right now, it's even more important to take a break from the onslaught of content coming at us from multiple mediums. We will never catch up on all the media being released. I once heard a staggering figure. Around 720,000 hours of video content gets uploaded to YouTube every day. It would take a person 82 years to watch just that single day of video content. Obviously, we can't do that. We need to find a way to filter out the filler and find the actual gold nuggets that might change us or educate us or inspire us. And that might involve unlearning or even forgetting things we have learned. In the poem that Roger read earlier, Mary Oliver tells us about this exact ability to forget what she'd been taught. I went out of the schoolhouse fast and through the gardens into the woods and spent all summer forgetting what I'd been taught. 2 times 2 and diligence and so forth. How to be modest and useful and how to succeed, and so forth. Machines and oil and plastic and money, and so forth. By fall, I had healed somewhat, but was summoned back to the chalky rooms and the desks to sit and remember the way the river kept rolling its pebbles, the way the wild wrens sang through, though they hadn't a penny in the bank, the way the flowers were dressed in nothing but light. She highlights this importance of unlearning and relearning, and of having the wisdom to know the difference. Following her example, I had to unlearn my own resistance to digital or virtual technologies during the pandemic, because we needed them to survive. How many of us used video technologies to attend our telehealth appointments or our therapy sessions, our 12-step groups, or other communities of support and nurture? What I had to relearn was that my commitment to the practices of being present and being still and being connected could actually also happen virtually. We could use Zoom to facilitate classes and meditation groups. We could use FaceTime to connect more deeply with our faraway families, both chosen and biological. This complexity that we're waking up to is our new challenge. It involves finding a way to healthfully integrate these new technologies without experiencing the type of future shock that could lead to personal or social paralysis. Here in this church community, we're trying to figure out how to be multi-platform and still hold on to our threads of stillness, focus, presence, and connection. We will not live into this new challenge perfectly, but we remain curious about the potential costs and benefits. This very afternoon, I'll be teaching our very first multi-platform membership class, which is wonderful because some people need human interaction after surviving a desert of isolation, and they can come attend in person. And some people, for whatever reason, maybe they have a baby at home or are uncomfortable being in person in small groups right now, and they can attend virtually. This flexibility is powerful, and it is new for us. Like all cycles of learning, it requires openness, humility, and wisdom. Openness to learn, humility to unlearn, and wisdom to relearn. And these same qualities inform our social action in the world and in our communities. Sometimes the openness required of us entails listening to a story that challenges our assumptions and preconceived notions. Sometimes the humility needed requires us to face some of our embarrassment or shame about our past ignorances. And sometimes the wisdom needed to relearn requires a leap of faith. Francis Bacon once said, "They are ill discoverers that think there is no land when they see nothing but ocean." We sometimes think we're too old or too set in our ways to relearn, but we might be surprised if we try. This week, I learned about a person who worked hard, both individually and socially, to achieve goals that weren't visible at the time and didn't seem possible. Her name was Sarojini Naidu, and she was a fierce advocate for women's suffrage and an important voice in the struggle against British imperialistic rule in India. In 1925, she was appointed the president of the Indian National Congress. And 5 years later, at the age of 51, she pressured Mahatma Gandhi to include women in the Salt March, even though he was initially hesitant. When Gandhi was arrested during the Salt March, he appointed her to lead the campaign. Throughout her 50s and 60s, she continued in her social activism against British colonial rule and was jailed twice by the British, once in 1932 and again 10 years later. She was imprisoned for 21 months. I learned about Naidu because she was also a poet, and her poetry was set to Bach's music in our UU hymnal, "The wind of change forever blown." She speaks eloquently about the tumult, strife, and sorrow caused by death as it unweaves the webs of life. She praises the labor and the strenuous heat of social action, even when the reward is deferred and victory is denied. But she also points to a supremely one peace and a great unknown nirvana, undeterred by the winds of change. We'll sing it today as our final hymn, as a call to remaining curious amidst the winds of change. It will also serve as a reminder about the complexity to which we do and will and must wake up. Gentle or not, awakenings are in our future. Every day we are waking up as a different person than the day before. May we integrate the needed lessons to wake up stronger and ready to face yesterday's tomorrow. May it be so, and make it so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 183 in the gray hardback hymnal, "The Wind of Change Forever Blown," with lyrics written by Sarojini Naidu. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together. Number 183.
Change forever blown across the tumult of our way. Tomorrow's unborn griefs depose the sorrows of our yesterday. Dream yields to dream, strife follows strife, and death unweaves the webs of life. For us the labor and the heat, the broken secrets of our pride, the strenuous lessons of defeat, the far deferred, the fruit denied, but not the peace supremely won, great Buddha of the lotus throne. With futile hands we seek to gain our inaccessible desire, diviner summits to attain, with faith that sinks and feet that tire, but not shall conquer or control the heavenward hunger of our soul. The end elusive and afar still lures us with its beckoning flight, and our immortal moments are a session of the infinite. How shall we reach the great unknown nirvana of your lotus throne?
As the winds of change forever blow, may we find openness to learn, humility to unlearn, and wisdom to relearn. May we wake up to the complexity all around us, and may we look past the bliss caused by ignorance and arrive at the supremely one peace. Go in peace. But first, a postlude.